From Hebrews to Jews, undoing modern confusion about the multi-ethnic, heterogeneous Israelites of the Bible. The people historically referred to as Hebrews, Israelites, Judeans, and early Jews were far from a single uniform group. Archaeological and textual evidence shows that these communities were ethnically and culturally diverse, reflecting centuries of interaction with neighboring peoples in the ancient Near East. From the Levantine Canaanites and Philistines to the Arameans, Moabites, and Edomites, these populations intermarried, traded, and shared cultural practices. Over time, additional influences came from Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, and later Hellenistic Greeks and Romans. Identity in this period was not rigidly based on biology or bloodlines, but rather on shared ancestry, language, religious practices, political allegiance, and tribal affiliation. Labels like Hebrew, Israelite, or Judean highlighted certain aspects of belonging, ancestral, tribal, regional, or cultural, rather than defining a single homogeneous people. The flexibility of ancient identity is further evident in the ways these terms were used. Hebrew could denote a semi-nomadic ancestral group, Israelite a member of a tribal nation, and Judean an inhabitant of the southern kingdom of Judah, while Greek and Latin translations, such as Iudaeos or Julius, emphasize regional or cultural belonging. Moreover, individuals from outside the geographic boundaries of Israel or Judah could adopt the language, religion, and customs of the Judeans, integrating into their communities. This demonstrates that ancient labels functioned as markers of social, cultural, and religious affiliation as much as ancestry, allowing for considerable diversity within the population. In medieval Europe, however, the meaning of these identities underwent a fundamental transformation. The ancient notion of Judaismos, or Judean way of life, which had described cultural and religious practices tied to a geographic region, became recast as an inherited, homogeneous, and quasi-ethnic category. Terms like Old French Jew and Middle English Jew no longer merely referred to someone following Judean customs. They implied a combined ancestral religious identity that was largely immutable. This transformation effectively created a proto-racial category, linking lineage, religious practice, and communal belonging in a way that had little precedent in the ancient Levant. Unlike the flexible multi-ethnic identities of the Hebrews, Israelites, and Judeans, medieval Jews were increasingly perceived as a single, bounded group with shared ancestry, laws, and customs. Modern readers, and even some popular histories, often project the concept of homogeneity backward onto ancient populations, which can create misunderstandings. The Hebrews, Israelites, and Judeans were diverse, multi-ethnic, and regionally varied, yet the continuity of cultural and religious practices can make them appear unified when viewed retrospectively. This contrasts sharply with communities such as Ashkenazi Jews, who emerged in medieval Europe from a smaller founded population and was shaped by centuries of relative endogamy and geographic concentration, resulting in a more genetically and culturally cohesive group. Without careful attention to historical context, it is easy to conflate the fluid, heterogeneous societies of the ancient Levant with the later, more homogeneous medieval Jewish populations, mistakenly assuming that the same level of uniformity existed in antiquity. Understanding these distinctions clarifies that identity in the ancient world was based on shared ancestry, cultural practice, and regional affiliation, rather than on rigid ethnic boundaries. Finally, the evolution of terminology mirrors this transformation of identity. The progression from Hebrew, Israelite, Judean, Judaeos, Jew reflects both linguistic shifts and changing social meanings. While early terms identified loosely defined, multi-ethnic groups bound by tribal, regional, or cultural ties, the later medieval term Jew increasingly denoted a bounded ethno-religious community, with ancestry, practice, and communal belonging tightly linked. Tracing these terms across time highlights not only the fluidity of ancient identities, but also how later historical circumstances reshaped those identities into more rigid, homogeneous categories, producing the sense of a unified Jewish people that is familiar in modern discourse.